It's on.
Thank you, Gayla. Okay. Well, it's important to share, to share your fears in Premier, because everybody has, some sort of fear, and obviously, whatever part that you're not comfortable with, that's usually the part that you'll not explain as well. Obviously, I mean, that makes sense, or that you will, or it's going to come across. And the money one, being pushy, is probably the biggest one that people talk about. And a close second is probably the money. That's the number one thing that people say are their biggest fears in sharing Premier. And so hopefully when we go through the opportunity presentation kind of page by page, is what we're going to do, you'll become more comfortable with that. And it is also one of those things that when you are newer, just like as your shows, the more you do your shows, you become more comfortable. The more you share the opportunity, you become more comfortable with it. And it becomes kind of second nature. The longer you're in Premier and the more that your just natural confidence starts to build in the company, the more confidently you're going to be sharing the opportunity with people. So it is something that, hopefully I can help you with, but some of it is just going to come with time. And some of it may be something that you always kind of struggle with a little bit, but hopefully we can start to work on that with you. The most important thing, or where I like to start off with sponsoring, is just number one, why do you want to sponsor? Because especially when you are a newer jeweler, you may not even know why it's something that you might want to include in your business. The sponsoring and retailing sides of your business, you want to think of them as two different trains on their own track. They're both going to be a part of your business, but they're completely separate. And it's a really natural tendency to want to connect the two. To want to, when you're on a roll and your business is going well and you've got all these bookings and you're all excited about your business, that's when obviously it would make sense that this is a time that you would want to you'd be kind of on fire to share Premier with people too. And on the other side of things, when things aren't going as well, that's when you kind of naturally sort of tend to pull back. Well, I shouldn't be sharing Premier right now because my business isn't going as well right now. So that's a normal, it's a natural train of thought. But because they're two separate trains, you really do want to try to just remember to always treat them separately, because your sponsoring train is just going to barrel along, and you can be doing 9 OPs a month, and sometimes people it's like, why isn't anyone signing up? Out of the blue, you'll sponsor 3 people. You'll sponsor 3 people that will come out of nowhere. You'll be following up with all these people you're doing OPs with. Out of nowhere, 2-3 people will come out of the blue, and you'll sign them up like that, And that's kind of how the sponsoring, it tends to go. It tends to go in waves, and you really want to be consistent with it. Just keep doing what you're doing, setting a specific amount of, certain goals and a specific amount of OPs you want to do a month is great. Just being really consistent like that. It's just a numbers game. The more people you share it with, the more you'll sign up. You can't expect, if you're not sharing it with people, I can't tell you how many times my jewelers say, I really want to sponsor, and I'm not sponsoring anyone. Well, what are you doing a sponsoring activity? No. Are you sharing an opportunity to anyone? No. Well, how can you expect to sponsor? You're not, just like you wouldn't get any bookings at your shows if you weren't doing a booking activity, you're not going to sponsor anyone if you're not sharing the opportunity. And so, so just really try to remember to keep them separate like that. Why we want to sponsor, the most obvious reason, of course, is because there's a lot of money to be made in sponsoring. So, this is a business. It's okay to talk about money, that you will make money when you sponsor. You can expect to make, it's roughly $50 per person per month. That's an average, of course, per active jeweler, really. So you could have, 10 jewelers in your downline. You would expect to make about a $500 commission check, 10 active jewelers. Another statistic, and it may be, and I know you're all just kind of starting off, but just kind of keep this in mind once you get there, is that it kind of depends, but about a third of your people won't be doing anything once you start getting commission checks. Once you start getting a lot of people under you. So that's another thing to keep in mind too, that you may have, X amount of people, but they're not always going to be working. So that $50 per person per month, that's kind of a rough estimate, but don't, obviously it depends. So that's the most obvious reason. The income that can be made through sponsoring Premier, that's really when it becomes limitless, because there's only so many days in a month that we can do shows. We have, restrictions. We have other things going on in our life. We're not doing shows 7 days a week. There's kind of a cap to your retail. The top retailers in the company, usually retail about 100,000. I think one year it was like 120, and that is like the top person in the whole company. She's out there, she's doing like 15 shows a month, you know. So that kind of gives you an idea of where that retail cap is, and of course that depends. As far as sponsoring goes, there are people in the company making a monthly commission check of $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. I mean, so that's monthly. So you can see how when we say that the income in Premier can be limitless, that's really through sponsoring. We make great money. We make 50%. That's fabulous. We make great money on our retail. But when you're talking about limitless income, that's through sponsoring income. And the only way that you can really get there is you only have control over your first level. You can sponsor as many people as you want into that first level. And then you can encourage them, you can help them, teach them how to sponsor, but it's really, that second and third level is really out of your control. So that's why, you just do what you can do to sponsor as many first levels as you can, and then, but then you can quickly build your second and third levels. The other reason why sponsoring is a benefit, not only just because of the money, but also the friendships and relationships that you make. The number one thing that I think that you need to really wrap your mind around with sponsoring is the opportunity that we have. And that's also why I always tell people, to treat it separately, because regardless of what's going on in your business, you may be going through a slump. You may be, I've sponsored people when looking at my calendar, I had nothing. I didn't have a single show on my calendar. And I remember one month I sponsored like 2 people, And so it's exciting. I mean, it keeps you excited. It keeps you going. That put a spring back in my step. So that's why I know I keep coming back to this, but it really is important to treat them separately, because whatever's going on in your business, you may only be doing this for a short time, but the opportunity you could give someone else could change their life forever. And so that is really the approach that you want to take to sponsoring, is that we have a phenomenal opportunity, and you really just want to share it with people, not for your own gain, but for what they can gain from that. And you really will be blessed for that. I've made my best friends I've ever had through sponsoring in Premier. So that's kind of the why of you want to sponsor. The second thing that's really important to talk about is who should sponsor, because I think Premier is very unique in that the emphasis in a lot of other direct sales companies is on recruiting, sponsoring, whatever. There's different words for it. We call it sponsoring. There's a lot of times there's a lot of emphasis on that. It's numbers. Get bigger, grow, recruit, get as many people as you can. And I think that Premier is unique in that they're careful with sponsoring. And it's not to say Premier will let anyone sponsor. Anyone can sponsor, but Premier recognizes that not everyone should. And so to kind of explain who should sponsor, what you need to understand before you start sponsoring, or before you start thinking about sponsoring, is that your responsibilities are going to be different. There's going to be different expectations on you. It's a different level of commitment when you start to sponsor. Premier hopes that every jeweler in Premier has integrity. It hopes that everyone's following the rules and stuff. It expects that people who sponsor are, and that's a difference. So the responsibilities really do shift when you decide to sponsor. Some of the things that you need to be aware of when you choose to sponsor is that you need to be committed to be actively and personally involved with your people. In Premier, we don't just kind of sponsor people and give them the handbook and say, okay, good luck, call me if you need me. And there's different levels to that. And one of the, I appreciate that you brought up, the time involved, and I'm going to talk about that, of what sort of time commitment you can expect, because it's important that we don't do everything for the people that we sponsor. And the biggest time commitment is in the first 90 days. When you first sponsor someone, that's when you're really going to kind of baby your jeweler. You are going to hold her hand. You are going to call her and remind her about a retraining. Can I give you a ride? You do baby her in those first 90 days. When I went to designer orientation, and Andy was doing a training, and he was talking about this. He said it's like you're in your boat. He was so cute. He's up on the stage and he's like this, rowing in his boat. He's like, you're in your boat and you're rowing your boat, and when you sponsor people, you put them in, you put them in with you, and you're rowing, and so you row them for a while. So you're going to row your people for the first 90 days, but after 90 days, you're going to be getting them in their own boat. you know, and so, kick them out of your boat.